Hello everyone, welcome to Mommy Baby Books. I'm Abby and let's get this video started. So I have a little bit something pretty different to talk about, so to speak, today. As I am a mom, and this is also kind of a mommy channel, I plan to do kind of more mommy things on it as well and turn with books. I'm also been thinking about doing something with Mia and her books as well. But today there's kind of something else I wanted to talk about because I finally feel like I'm at a place where I can talk about it because things are a lot better now. So basically what I wanted to talk about today is something called postpartum anxiety and postpartum obsessive compulsive disorder. So basically I think everybody's heard of postpartum depression, also known kind of as baby blues. Well, until I got pregnant, that's all I thought was there too, until I was doing some research and talking to other moms and realizing there's also something called postpartum anxiety. Basically, postpartum you get an anxiety disorder just because of flux of hormones. I mean, your body goes through massive changes after you have a baby because you're going from having kind of this high of hormones to pretty much the second the baby's born, they drop way down. But also as a breastfeeding mom, I was still producing a lot of those hormones, and I still am, of what I was when I was pregnant. So everything kind of gets whacked up in your brain after you have a baby, and I'm not saying everybody's going to get some sort of a postpartum mental disorder. It does not happen to everybody. Some people's bodies adjust just fine. But for me personally, I figured out that I have postpartum anxiety and postpartum obsessive compulsive disorder with a focus, I guess it's technically with a focus on the obsessive, not the compulsive behavior. So I'll start about postpartum anxiety first. I first noticed problems almost right away after I had my daughter. At first they were little things I kind of brushed off as to just being a new mother, like people were coming up to see us in the hospital, and I did not want to hand my baby to anybody. It scared me. For some reason, I had it in my head that somebody was going to drop her, somebody was going to run off with her, and it was frightening. And even when the nurses came in, like the nurse came in the middle of the night, which I don't know why they did that in the first place. That's a whole different issue. Came in the middle of the night and woke me because she had to check my hemoglobin levels because I did have a little bit of additional bleeding when I had my daughter. And she also noticed that my daughter had not had her hearing test yet or had her, I believe, her vitamin K shot. Basically, they would give all newborns a vitamin K shot that assists their blood in clotting. So she asked me, she's like, can I take her and do the hearing test and everything? And being half asleep and exhausted that I said yes. And it wasn't until later when I fell back asleep and I woke up and my daughter was in our room. I freaked out. I woke my husband, I called the nurse, and I'm like, where is my baby? And she's like, oh, they took her over just to do her hearing test and everything. You said it was okay. And at that point, I didn't remember because I was half asleep at the time. So I think that didn't help anything in the beginning, but as time progressed on, like about a week after she was born, it was Easter Sunday, and we had a couple different family gatherings to go to. So the first one being with my personal family, not my husband's family. And my husband and I had discussed, along with discussing with our daughter's pediatrician at the time, that she really shouldn't be held by anybody or passed around at Easter just for fear of germs. And we were, really figuring out a breastfeeding relationship, and she also at the time had jaundice. So she recommended that we don't pass her around, we don't let very many people hold her. And at that point, I had talked to my husband, and we agreed nobody was going to be holding the baby on Easter. Well, I get to my family's gathering, and, feeling bad for the decision I had made, I let my mom and my grandfather hold her. Which I do not regret in any way whatsoever, but at the time it scared me to the point where I wanted to leave. I actually at one point walked out of the room crying because it was becoming too much. Thankfully, when we got to my husband's family gathering that day, I think I could kind of got my wits about me a little further, and nobody there held her. Only Shane or I held her. Most of the time, I was wearing her. But from that day forward, things got progressively worse. One of the biggest things I remember was it got to a point where I didn't want anybody holding my daughter. I didn't want anybody changing her clothes, doing anything. Like, it even got to a point where I didn't want my husband doing any of that. I remember I was scared to put her in the car seat. I was scared to carry her downstairs. Stairs freaked me out. Like, it was bad. I was scared to drive anywhere. I was afraid to leave my own house, honestly. When I was putting her down, we had a little rock and play next to our bed where she slept for about the first 6 months of her life, just because it's so easy for breastfeeding in the middle of the night. And each time I put her down, I was so incredibly careful to put her down because I was so afraid I was going to hurt her. And I was so careful picking her up. And so most of the time, like the first 2 weeks of her life, she was on my chest pretty much the entire time. I started to know something wasn't right, so I made an appointment to go back to see my gynecologist, and he wasn't available, so I saw his PA, and she immediately recommended medication, which I was not very comfortable with, personally. So she gave me a prescription, and I never filled it, and so I let this go on, I think, a little too long. I don't think I got in to see a therapist until my daughter was about 3 months old. And at that point, there was a really low night where for some reason I had it in my head that somebody was going to break in my house and either hurt my family, hurt myself, take my baby, something. And so I legitimately went up to my husband. I was like, can you move our cat's litter box in our room so that we can shut and lock the door tonight? And if you could switch the sides of the bed with me. Because at the time our bed was not up against this wall. It was kind of in the middle of this wall. So we had end tables on either side. And I wanted him to switch sides with me so that me and I would be on this side away from the door. I had it in my head. I don't know where it came from. But so I finally saw my regular doctor, and she said, I'm going to get you in to see a therapist. And from there we went, and my therapist was amazing. He was fabulous. And then I started noticing, I think this probably when she turned 5 or 6 months old, I started noticing what they call intrusive thoughts. Basically, these are things that pop into your head randomly. You're not even thinking about something when they come along, and it's very, very hard to get rid of them. And these were the main part that scared me the most, because these were very dark, scary thoughts. Even thoughts about myself purposely harming my child. I even at times had thoughts of just walking away, like leaving in the middle of the night and just not coming back, because I felt, at the time, I think I was very, very overwhelmed with everything. Being a new mom is the scariest thing in the world. The best thing in the world, but it is scary, I think, for anybody. And I don't want to discourage anybody from having a child due to these issues. Like I said, this does not happen to everybody. This actually happens, I think, only to 30% of women after they have a baby. And yeah, I seriously thought about just leaving. Like, it broke my heart at the same time, but I knew I would never act on those actions. Also, later on to come to learn that since I was having these repeatedly, like several times a day, that is part of postpartum OCD, with the main issue being on the obsessive. I didn't have any compulsive behaviors that you would see in normal postpartum OCD. So I finally was able to get the courage to bring this out to my therapist, and He was able to help me work through them, basically teaching me to replace those thoughts with something else. And not to say that either of these issues have gone away yet, because they haven't. But they have lessened, and I've also learned techniques to use to deal with the problems as they arise. I still get anxious, especially in very large crowds of people. It's been that way since she was basically born, but that's still one of my bigger issues, is being in a large crowd of people with her makes me anxious. Also leaving her with someone else, which we have done several times now, and she has done fine, but it still makes me kind of crazy when she's not within my arm's reach or my distance where I can hear her, see her, and make sure she's all right. So, but she's 15 months old now. She's thriving. She is an amazing little girl. She's so incredibly smart. She's walking everywhere, very close to running. She had her first dentist appointment today, which is kind of insane, and her dentist actually said her little teeth are like so perfect she should be in a book of like displaying what infants' teeth look like when they come in. And she's also got a lot of teeth for her age. She is only missing her second molar now, which normally doesn't come until a child is about 2 years old. 2 to 3 is kind of when that molar comes in, but she has the rest of her teeth already. And I'm one proud mommy. Like, she's the light of my life. But I wanted to make this video to put it out there in support of other moms, for educational purposes, and to show people, there is a light at the end of that tunnel, and, eventually everything will work itself out. I think a lot of my problems will go away once I'm done breastfeeding her and my hormone levels go all the way back down to where they normally sit when you're not pregnant or not breastfeeding. So that's kind of all I've got for you guys today, but I'll talk to you later. Bye.